Hello everyone and welcome to another wonderful game from the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League. It is Vidit Gujrathi versus Wei Yi, and well, the game comes as a suggestion from subscriber Michael Massaro, and I checked the game out. Some games are really fun to watch when they're being played live. Some are really fun to analyze afterwards. Some are fun to watch while they're being played and while they're being analyzed afterwards, and this game is both. I'm sure you guys will agree after seeing it. And the game is basically a story of a king that wanted to be too active. Now we all know that you have to have an active king, but if you have a too active king, you will pay the ultimate price. Now let's see what this means in practice. Vidit with white opens with pawn to e4, and regarding their head-to-head score, Wei Yi is a little bit better in every time format. In classical, he's leading by a point, and in rapid, he's also leading by a point. So good opportunity for Vidit to strike back. So pawn to e4, and Wei Yi goes for pawn to c5. Of course, no one's surprised by that, as he is a very fighting player. We have knight to f3, d6, and pawn to d4. C captures knight to f6, knight to c3, and Wei Yi opts for the Najdorf Sicilian. We have pawn to a6, bishop to e6, the Byrne or the English attack by Vidit, and pawn to e5. We have knight to f3, bishop to e7, and bishop to c4. We have bishop to e6 challenging the bishop, and the bishop back to c3, to b3. Vidit says, all right, you can capture, but I'm going to capture back with the a pawn, open up the a file for my rook, or maybe if I want to really be weird about stuff, I'm going to play c captures on b3. We have castles, and now comes the first surprise of the game. Now this is a fairly standard position of the English attack. Popular moves are knight to c6, pawn to b5, queen to c7, very popular. Sometimes h6 can be played, but the Wei Yi plays queen to c8, and this is almost never played. There are only a handful of games in the database with this queen to c8 idea, and it has been met by some moves like knight to d5, but here we have pawn to a4, and it is now as of move 11 that we have a completely new game. And if you look at the time on the clock before this move, Vidit with 19 minutes on the clock. After making this move, 18 minutes and 16 seconds. So he spent over a minute on this move, which is a lot on move 11, in the English Najdorf. But he says, all right, I mean, a4 is very useful against every Sicilian, so we should definitely play it here. You are preventing b5, and you're also grabbing more space. Maybe a5, some bishop to b6 can be played, or sometimes even a5, knight a4 will guard b6. So, or you can put the knight on b6. So many different ideas. Knight b to d7 and knight to h4, going after the f5 square, saying, okay, if you capture, you will mess up my pawn structure, but then my bishop will be unstoppable. So pawn to g6, stopping knight to f5, knight back to f3, and knight to c5. A standard square for the knight in the Najdorf. We have bishop to g5 and rook to d8. Okay, as usual, black is doing everything he can to execute d5. Bishop captures on f6, removing one of the defenders of d5. Bishop captures, and now knight to d5. And now there are two ways you could go about this. You could eliminate the bishop, as the light square bishop really is a wonderful piece, or you could play something like bishop captures on d5, give up your own light square bishop, and after bishop captures, go knight e6, and then control d4, control f4, maybe even put a knight there at some point. So those are basically your two options, or you just wait. But in the game, knight captures on b3, and now as you've already pushed the a pawn, c captures, that wouldn't be all that impressive. Knight captures on f6 is better. Knight captures on f6 with check, king to g7, and now knight to h5 with check. You're going to lose the knight either way, so you might as well mess up Wei Yi's pawn structure while you're at it. And if you tried king to h6, that doesn't really make sense. Because, well, you just go under the mask of the queen, and then knight captures on e5, and black is already lost. So after knight h5 check, g captures on h5, c captures on b3, and pawn to f6, just strengthening the center. And okay, your king side is a bit broken up, but that also means that you can use the g file to attack the white king. So knight to h4, going after the h5 pawn with the queen, also maybe some knight f5 action, maybe f4. All depends on what way he plays, and he goes for pawn to d5, just opens up the center. Rook to c1 and queen to d7. And this is a good example of how a strong player plays. You know that you have to play that pawn to d5, and it doesn't matter what's happening on the king side. If queen captures on h5, nothing really is happening. So this is the way to do it. E captures on d5. Queen captures and rook to c7 with check. We have king to h6, boldly going forward with the king, and queen to c1 with check. But okay, just queen d2. We're just going to trade queens. Rook captures on b7, and Wei Yi trades. Queen captures, rook captures on c1, and rook a to c8. Just getting the other rook into the game. Rook to e1, putting pressure on the e5 pawn, and rook to c6. And okay, you have everything defended along the 6th rank. How is Vidit to continue this game? Of course, as you would continue any other game. Pawn to b4. You have a 3-1 advantage on the queen side, so advancing the pawn to b5 will ensure the creation of the passed pawn. Okay, the rook to d2 goes after the b2 pawn. Also, the f2 pawn could be a little bit weak if you manage to double up rooks here. If these two rook become pigs, then you know that Wei Yi is either drawing this game or winning. It's not going to be a win for white once you double up rooks on the 2nd rank. Pawn to b5. Okay, a captures, and now rook captures on b5. A captures on b5 is more precise, but with little time on the clock, Vidit decides to go for rook captures on b5, which is not the best if Wei Yi finds rook to d4. Remember, the knight on h4 is undefended, and that means you will lose the a4 pawn. And once the knight returns, the rook captures on a4, and now it's equal material, it's a draw. So after rook captures on b5, bishop to c4 was played by Wei Yi. He doesn't find rook to d4. Rook to b7, and now bishop to a6. Attacks the rook, rook to a7, attacks the bishop, and bishop to d3. Again, defending that h7 pawn, but for the moment it's not like white has a way of reaching that h7 pawn with more pieces than the rook. Pawn to b4. Okay, now Vidit shows that he was able to have 2 pawns, not having a doubled b pawn, but rather a nice a and b pawn setup. Rook c to c2, doubling up on the c file, and now rook to d7, saying, okay, if you capture on f2, I'm just going to capture the bishop, and the g2 pawn is defended, so we don't have to worry about that. But Wei Yi finds rook e2, very nasty. We have rook to f1 and pawn to e4. And while this is a nice move as it, gets the game going, it does allow Vidit's knight back into the game. As long as the bishop covers that square, the knight is stuck on h4. So immediately, knight f5 with check, king to g6, and knight to e3. We have rook to a2, putting the rooks behind the passed pawns where they belong, pawn to a5, and now rook e to b2. And it seems that Wei Yi has nothing to worry about. He has both of his rooks behind both of Vidit's passed pawns. What could go wrong here? We have rook to e1, as now the bishop was attacking the rook on f1, and rook captures on f2. We have pawn to h3, and now, okay, the g2 pawn is defended. So the only way to grab hold of the g2 pawn is to eliminate the knight. But the knight is on a dark square, and you only have a light square bishop. So how do you do it? Of course, f5, f4. That is the way to do it. If Wei Yi can play f5, f4, he wins the game. So he starts with f5. I'm sure you were ready for that. And how does Vidit stop pawn to f4? Well, he finds a very tricky move, rook to d6 check. Now, the game is not winning for Vidit or for Wei Yi. The game is a dead draw, but only if played to perfection. Now, what would you play here? Remember, Vidit has only 24 seconds on the clock, Wei Yi 1 minute and 9 seconds. What would you play here? And it's remember, it's the game is the story of a king who became too active. Now, king to g5 is the move you have to play. And it looks a little bit weird because, you could get checkmated so many different ways. But the point is, you just prepare pawn to f4 again, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have h4. If g3, you can play h4 yourself. So you don't have to worry about getting checkmated. Okay, it's very hard to see this with little time on the clock. And if rook to d5, you cannot play pawn to f4, but you can just go back, and then white either finds a different way to play this, or you agree to a draw. So that's pretty much it. But maybe Wei Yi wanted more than a draw, and he played king to g7. And even though it seems like your king is less active on g7, it's actually more active, but in a bad way. So how do you win this? Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Vidit while I give you a couple of seconds. No doubt you guys were able to solve this one. It's a pretty straightforward ladder checkmate. Rook to c1, rook to c7, and rook to d8. So did Vidit, did Wei Yi overlook this? Of course not. He's Wei Yi. So what did he have in mind? Rook to c1. Okay, what happens next? King to f8. You have to play it, otherwise you're going to get checkmated. Rook to c7, threatening rook to d8 checkmate, so of course king to e8. Now comes rook to b6. Vidit now threatening rook to b8 checkmate. Now Wei Yi goes king to d8, attacks the rook on c7, and now rook captures on h7. The threat is rook to b8 checkmate, so once again a move with the king. King to c8, and now Vidit just played rook to g6, and he was in this position on move 46 that Wei Yi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Rook to g8 will be checkmate, and there's no way to stop this. Your bishop is in the way of bringing a rook to d8, and you cannot move the bishop, for example, to c4 to guard g8, as the knight is covering the c4 square. So you're really out of moves. You do not have a single move to play here. Of course, it's time to resign. So yeah, beautiful game, and it seems so simple, like 40 moves played to perfection. F5, okay, really pressuring that white king nicely, and then Vidit just plays rook to d6 check. And you know, what does your years and years of playing experience, of being one of the strongest players in the world, of marching your king all over the board so many times, without consequences, he doesn't go king g5, he goes king to g7, and that's it. The king has to go all the way to c8 only to get checkmated. That, sometimes chess is sad like this for the player who lost, but it's also a very happy place for Vidit, who won this game very nicely. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, thank you for suggesting such a wonderful game. Like I said, some games are nice when you watch them being played live, but sometimes they're also very nice when you analyze them afterwards, if they have some sort of meaning or something that you can take from the game. And I believe this game had the exact that thing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Bubbles McGee, Tigran Shanazarian, Chess King 22, Welcome Atlas, Wilton Jack Ingram, and Ranko Jogashovic for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.